So next up, and Emil, thank you for that, bringing up human security. Our next speaker, Adriane Littlefield, represents Sandia's work in the global security programs, and part of which is our longstanding effort at cooperative monitoring around the world for that support human security. Adriane is a deputy manager of the Cooperative Monitoring Center, where she's specialized in regional security and cooperative threat reduction programs. These have included many areas in the Middle East as well as Asia over the last 20 plus years. Adriane was the program lead at the Cooperative Monitoring Center's project to engage Iraq science and technology community. And she will speak to us about not only her background in the work that she's done, but all the programs at the Global Security Center at Sandia and how they contribute to peace engineering. So thank you, Adriane.
Thanks, Nancy. And so I should say at the beginning of this, I'm a social scientist by training, but an engineer by 20 years of osmosis. So I'm actually a conflict resolution specialist by academic background. And I came to work at Sandia because of the work of the CMC and the novel approach that it offered to the conflict resolution community. And as Joe said, there's no new ideas. And many people before have said no new ideas. But I'm really glad to see new energy around the idea that conflict reduction, that technology has a role in conflict reduction and in helping people understand that there is a path to a more peaceful and sustainable future through this marriage of technology and resources and people. So let me see if I can actually get back to screen sharing. So the CMC is an organization that was started in 1994. Actually, first conversations were starting in 1993. First event was in 1994.
We're not seeing your screen.
Yeah, I'll get there in just a second.
Okay.
So we have, that's okay. We have, it was started by 2 engineers and a physicist. Many of you in the room will recognize the names Arian Pregenzer and Kent Berenger and Mike Finoni, only one of whom is still at Sandia. The others have gone to retirement. And Mike Finoni actually works over in the area with Nancy now. And so we, some faces in the room who have been involved with the CMC either directly or tangentially since the beginning. All right, so the way I organized this was just to kind of talk about origins, and then we'll kind of bring it forward to the future. But as Rob and others have said, Sandia has a long institutional cooperation on a variety of topics. One of the things that I think we do particularly well is to take historical events, understand and bring those kind of lessons learned into the future. And with the fall of the Soviet Union, we were in a world that was kind of unipolar or multipolar to a unipolar geopolitical world. So we had a Middle East peace process in the beginning of in this time period when the CMC was founded. As Emil and many others in the room can attest, it was a time of a lot of conflict in the Middle East. And Arian and others had the idea that you could basically take technologies, specifically border monitoring and technologies, and if you applied it, installed it into the region, that you could create an environment where there was a great deal more trust between both diplomats and militaries, and through building trust, that you had a potential path for a diplomatic resolution to peace. And so it was a combination of that technology, diplomacy, and human factors, as we were just talking about, to move into a potentially different future, right? So it wasn't just Middle East. Middle East was the first piece of the CMC problem space. But there were other regions in the world where there were complex conflict situations around water and resources that really had an opportunity for the CMC to look at a different approach to how you might deal with that conflict space. Okay. And as I said, border security was the first of the efforts. But that was everything from troop movements to border incursions to smuggling, to migration, either legal, licit or illicit, or legal or illegal migration, depending on which side of the diplomatic coin you were looking at. Okay. But really the idea, as technology is the source of information to build trust, this was the foundation of that idea at Sandia, and into the future. So that taking those Cold War arms control experiences, that the people who had been in the negotiation processes on arms control treaties, and as I said, that first workshop was in the summer of 1994 in a building just across the parking lot from where I sit now, and it was the beginning also of a partnership with NNSA, but also with the Department of State. Again, even in the government side, bringing together the pieces of the technology and the diplomatic arms of the U.S. government to look at this opportunity. Okay. Then we have what we call the golden years, which was where this really idea came to fruition. And we were able to do a great deal of international collaboration around technical issues. As I said, we had transnational water issues that we looked at in both Central Asia, South Asia, maritime issues, transparency and CBMs, or confidence building measures, in East Asia and other parts of the world. And I would say the DOE formally established CMC, and then in 1994, but then we also developed a sister organization in the Middle East, in Amman, Jordan, in 2003, and that institution continues to work and thrive today. And so the emphasis here on both technical and political experts is a really important point to understanding how we can actually get to problem solving in these conflict spaces, because the engineers often have very good engineering solutions for problems, but that they don't always have the political will or the political knowledge to move those ideas forward. And so it really takes an understanding of the political dynamics in those regions and in those particular countries, and having allies to move those ideas forward on the political front to be able to realize an actual solution. And so in addition to NNSA, we've seen good support from the Department of State and from DITRA, from the DoD. And one of the things that I think is really important for us is that we are considered a neutral forum for discussing sensitive issues. So we're well outside the Washington Beltway. We can, host people here, and it is as far away from the political pressures that one can imagine. And so I think that for me, the critical components of the CNC include having a technology demonstration area so that people can understand how these technologies can be applied to particular problems. We have testing laboratories. The part that I find most rewarding is our visiting scholars program. And then for many years, we also ran a training course in cooperative monitoring, which helped policymakers and from all across the US government to understand this kind of technology policy nexus. We had many staffers, a whole generation of people who are in the political apparatus now kind of understand how a cooperative approach to some of these seemingly intractable problems had its roots through technology cooperation. Okay. And then what we call the years of austerity. Those years really kind of forced us to diversify sponsors and to think about the analytical approach. The work of the CNC continued, but it didn't have the same kind of energy in life that it had in those early years. And so during those times, you ask a lot of soul-searching questions, especially as we are often spending taxpayer dollars. And so we came to a point where we said, is this idea still valid? Is it relevant? is it necessary? Are there other organizations that can carry this banner forward? And came to the point of realization that the CMC really did have something unique to offer in this space. So as of 2019, I would say that we entered, what I consider revitalization. And our future is looking at, how you take this fairly unique idea and the marriage of the 14,000 people who are at Sandia, who are engineers and creative thinkers and problem solvers, and overlay the diplomatic space in a way that we're looking for cooperative solutions. And so what that future looks like for us is this, kind of recognition of the geopolitical context, looking at, the multipolar world where we have near peer competitors, and even the transition from a unipolar to multipolar world, and the complexities that brings. The Middle East peace process says, that we're at least a forum for discussion and negotiation have been languishing, and many would say are completely non-existent. We have the rise of new regional powers, non-state actors, potentially rogue states. All of that in a geopolitical context is a space that is relevant for the CMC in this larger picture. Also, we have rapid scientific and technological advances that we don't necessarily always understand the impact on global security until well after the fact. I think we have lots of examples in the media today on what that looks like. We have new frameworks potentially, right? Developing new agreements for arms control, not necessarily, recognizing or acknowledging the past and previous agreements, but new treaties and agreements may look quite different in terms of partnerships and the verification measures that would be needed for understanding that security envelope. And in fact, we've seen in the new Biden administration a return to thinking about new negotiation of new treaties under a new technology basis, right? So what I would just assert for this audience is that we have an institution that's now past 25, coming up on 30 years, that has name recognition and a huge alumni network, people who have been contributors, authors, advocates over the years, who are well attuned to this operating space. And we have both scientifically and regionally informed options that help drive the U.S. national security objectives. And with that, I would say lots of information on our website, including our publications, our past scholars, many of our distinguished alumni. And I would say, before, just to preempt the question, one of the things that has been a challenge in this COVID operational world is right in the middle of that revitalization. COVID happened. And so what that has done is, kind of forced us to be creative, right? Like today, when we're, kind of doing these hybrid events. But it's also an opportunity, right? Because before, when we brought everyone together in a room from across the world, we were spending thousands upon thousands of dollars. And now, we have the ability to engage, in near real time or real time without necessarily the expense. I would argue that we're also trading off some of the in-person dialogue and the ability to connect as human beings and drive to peaceful solutions. But work doesn't have to stop just because of travel restrictions and concerns about global health. Right? Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Running out of time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please use the chat so we can ask her later.